That stick of butter sitting in your refrigerator right now. The one you use every single day without giving it a second thought. The one you melt into your pan before scrambled eggs, spread across your toast while it's still warm. Stir into sauces and baked goods because it is one of the oldest, most trusted ingredients in any kitchen anywhere in the world. You assumed that meant something simple. Cream, churned until the fat separates, salted or not. That is what butter has always been. 2 ingredients at most. A food so simple and so ancient that the process for making it has not fundamentally changed in thousands of years. Here is what almost nobody standing in the dairy aisle actually knows before they reach for the familiar yellow box. The FDA's minimum legal standard for butter in the United States requires only 80% milk fat. The European Union requires 82%. That 2% difference sounds small until you understand what fills the gap. Water and added compounds that help the lower-fat American minimum maintain the texture and spread characteristics that consumers expect from a product they've been eating their whole lives. In practice, several major American butter brands hit exactly the legal minimum of 80% milk fat, and go no higher, because every percentage point of milk fat costs more than the water and additives that replace it at scale. Beyond the fat percentage, a category of additive called starter distillate is added to the butter of several major American brands specifically to simulate the flavor of traditionally cultured butter, without going through the actual culturing process. Traditional cultured butter is made by allowing cream to ferment with live bacterial cultures for 12 to 18 hours, during which the bacteria produce diacetyl, the compound that gives cultured butter its characteristic complex flavor. Starter distillate is manufactured by culturing skim milk with bacteria, distilling off the volatile flavor compounds, concentrating them into a liquid, and then injecting that liquid into cream before churning to create the same flavor profile without the time, the live cultures, or the traditional process. It is the dairy industry equivalent of adding smoke flavor to bacon instead of actually smoking it. And separately, a category of butter packaging that has been independently tested by environmental laboratories and found to contain organic fluorine compounds, indicators of PFAS chemical presence, is sitting in your refrigerator right now on the wrappers of some of the most trusted butter brands in America. We investigated 11 of the biggest butter brands sold across America, looking at milk fat percentage, additive presence, grass-fed claim verification, PFAS packaging concerns, and what independent testing has found about the actual contents of each product. We are counting down from the least concerning to the most concerning, and at the end I will give you 5 brands that are actually selling you real butter. Let's get into it. Number 11. Organic Valley Salted Butter. Organic Valley is a farmer-owned cooperative that has built its entire brand identity around organic dairy farming and transparent supply chain practices, and across most of its product categories, that reputation is well earned through independent certification and farmer-direct accountability structures. The Organic Valley butter ingredient list for its core salted variety is clean, pasteurized organic cream and salt, 2 ingredients that are exactly what they should be. The organic certification is independently verified through USDA oversight rather than self-reported, which addresses the question of what the dairy cows producing the cream were fed and what hormones and antibiotics they were or were not exposed to. Organic Valley discloses that its cows spend a meaningful portion of the year on pasture, and while the specific pasture percentage and grass diet documentation varies by member farm and season, the cooperative structure creates a level of farmer direct accountability that most large corporate dairy brands simply cannot offer. This butter sits near the top of this list because it is genuinely one of the more honest products in the category. Its placement here is not an accusation of fraud, but a starting point for a conversation about how even the best mainstream options compare to what 5 genuinely exceptional brands at the end of this list are doing. Number 10. Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter. Kerrygold is the second best-selling butter brand in America, and arguably the brand most responsible for making grass-fed butter a mainstream consumer category rather than a specialty food item. The gold foil packaging, the iconic positioning, the association with Irish green pastures and Atlantic coast dairy farming, all of it has worked to create a product whose name has become almost synonymous with the concept of genuinely premium butter. Here is what the marketing does not say directly. Irish dairy cows are typically housed indoors from November through March due to Ireland's harsh winter weather conditions, during which time they eat silage, grain, and supplemental feed rather than fresh grass. A class action lawsuit filed in the Southern District of California in 2018 specifically alleged that Kerrygold's grass-fed marketing was misleading because Irish dairy cows eat grain-based feed during the winter months. The lawsuit was dismissed on the grounds that a reasonable consumer would not interpret the word grass-fed to mean the cows ate exclusively grass throughout the entire year. That court ruling is worth sitting with for a moment. A federal judge determined that the phrase grass-fed does not legally mean the cows ate only grass, and separately, independent laboratory testing commissioned by the environmental research organization Mammovation found indicators of organic fluorine compounds, potential PFAS markers, in the Kerrygold wrapper material. Those findings have not resulted in regulatory action, but they represent a question about packaging safety that the gold foil and premium shelf positioning are not designed to prompt you to ask. Land O'Lakes is one of the most recognized butter brands in America, a farmer cooperative that has marketed its butter around American dairy farming heritage for over a century, and whose name appears on the butter wrapper in more American refrigerators than almost any other brand. The ingredient list on Land O'Lakes unsalted butter includes sweet cream and natural flavor. That phrase natural flavor appearing in a butter that should contain nothing but cream and possibly salt is the disclosure that starter distillate has been added to the product. Natural flavor is the regulatory term that covers starter distillate under current FDA labeling rules, meaning a compound manufactured by culturing skim milk, distilling the volatile flavor compounds, and injecting the concentrate into the cream before churning gets listed on the label the same way a naturally occurring seasoning would be. Land O'Lakes confirms the use of starter distillate in their products on their own FAQ page. They are not hiding it, but the natural flavor language on the label is not designed to make that manufacturing shortcut visible to the average shopper reaching for a familiar yellow box on autopilot. Separately, independent testing has placed Land O'Lakes standard butter at 80% milk fat, the legal minimum, without going above it, and Mammovation's EPA-certified laboratory testing of Land O'Lakes butter wrappers found organic fluorine readings suggesting potential PFAS compound presence in the packaging material in contact with the butter itself. Number 8. Tillamook butter. Tillamook has built a strong regional following centered on the Pacific Northwest and expanded nationally on the basis of its cooperative identity, its coastal Oregon heritage, and its positioning as a more premium, more quality-focused alternative to the mass-market brands that dominate the national dairy aisle. The Tillamook butter ingredient list includes cream and salt for the salted variety, which is reassuringly short. The cooperative structure, similar to Land O'Lakes and Organic Valley, creates some degree of farmer-direct accountability. The concern with Tillamook butter is not an egregious formulation problem, it's a transparency gap. Tillamook does not publicly disclose the milk fat percentage of its butter beyond meeting the legal minimum, does not publish specific pasture access or grass diet information for the farms supplying its cream, and does not hold any third-party grass-fed certification on its butter, despite the Pacific Northwest pastoral imagery throughout its branding that implies a farming story the label cannot actually verify for you. Number 7. Challenge butter. Challenge has been a California dairy cooperative brand for decades, sold widely across the western United States with a positioning built around California dairy farming heritage and cooperative structure similar to Land O'Lakes and Tillamook. The ingredient list on several Challenge butter products includes cream and natural flavor, the same starter distillate disclosure discussed in the Land O'Lakes entry. The natural flavor addition in a product sold under a dairy cooperative identity that implies traditional simple production represents the same gap between brand story and actual formulation practice. Challenge does not publish specific milk fat percentages beyond the legal minimum, does not hold third-party grass-fed certification on its standard butter line, and the California Dairy Heritage branding does not carry with it any specific grass-fed or pasture-raised standard that would distinguish the cows supplying Challenge's cream from those supplying any other conventional American dairy operation. Number 6. Breakstone's butter. Breakstone's markets itself around a heritage of dairy craftsmanship, with packaging that evokes a traditional small-batch dairy identity and positions the brand as a step above the mass-market commodity butter brands sitting at lower price points. The formulation reality is that Breakstone's, owned by the same large corporate dairy conglomerate behind several other butter products in the American market, follows the same industrial production model as the other mass-market brands on this list. Natural flavor indicating starter distillate presence appears on the ingredient list. Milk fat sits at the legal minimum. No independent third-party grass-fed certification appears anywhere on the packaging. And the heritage imagery of the branding is not backed by any specific production standard or sourcing transparency that would distinguish this butter from any other conventional American commercial butter product. Number 5. I can't believe it's not butter, and comparable butter substitute spreads marketed alongside genuine butter. This category deserves a specific entry because these products sit in the exact same refrigerated dairy case as genuine butter, are often purchased by shoppers who believe they are making a healthier choice by avoiding saturated fat, and have ingredient lists that are about as far from 2 ingredients as the snack aisle is from a farmer's market. The standard "I can't believe it's not butter" formulation includes water, soybean oil, palm kernel oil and palm oil, salt, lecithin, potassium sorbate, natural flavor, vitamin A palmitate, and beta-carotene for color. That final ingredient, beta-carotene added for color, is worth pausing on specifically. Real grass-fed butter is naturally a deep yellow to orange color because of beta-carotene absorbed by cows eating fresh green grass and deposited into milk fat. Adding synthetic beta-carotene to a water and soybean oil spread to make it look like it might contain what a genuinely grass-fed butter would naturally provide through actual dairy nutrition is a precise summary of what this category represents. If you have made it this far through this list, you're probably already thinking about what is in your refrigerator right now. Subscribe to Scam Uncovered right now, because we do exactly this every single week, pulling apart the ingredient lists, the certifications, and the independent testing records on products most people have been buying without question for years. 4 more entries left before we get to the 5 worth buying, and the next one is one of the most purchased butter products in America. Number 4. Horizon Organic Butter. Horizon Organic is the brand millions of American parents specifically reach for when they want to give their families something better than conventional dairy. The blue box with the cow illustration that carries a USDA organic seal and a pasture-raised claim that feels like it should mean exactly what it implies. Horizon is owned by Danone, a $30 billion French multinational corporation that also owns Evian, Activia, and dozens of other food brands across 6 continents. Danone acquired Horizon through its purchase of White Wave Foods in 2017. The pasture-raised claim on Horizon butter requires only that cows have access to pasture for 120 days per year, which is 1/3 of a year. For the remaining 245 days, the cows can be confined indoors eating organic grain-based feed. The USDA organic standard requires outdoor access but sets no minimum percentage of diet from grass and defines no minimum daily duration for that outdoor access. A cow could technically satisfy the pasture-raised organic requirement by spending limited time outdoors on a minimal pasture area for the required number of days. The butter has never been marketed as grass-fed. It does not need to be. The organic seal, the pasture-raised claim, and the pastoral illustration of a cow on green fields do the work that a grass-fed label would otherwise require. Number 3. Great Value Butter, Walmart's house brand. Great Value Butter sits at the lowest price point of any butter product sold at a major American grocery chain, positioned specifically for budget-conscious shoppers who need butter without spending the premium that name brands command. At Great Value's price point, the butter hits exactly the legal minimum milk fat standard of 80%, no higher. Conventional sourcing from undisclosed farms with no pasture access or grass diet information published anywhere, no third-party quality certification of any kind. Starter distillate is present in certain Great Value butter varieties listed as natural flavor, and the Walmart distribution scale means the cream inputs are sourced through commodity dairy markets at whatever price point satisfies the cost target for a given production run rather than through any fixed quality or welfare standard applied to the farms supplying the raw cream. This is not fraud. It is the logical endpoint of a food supply chain optimized entirely for price efficiency at massive retail scale. Number 2. Store brand butter sold under regional grocery chain private labels. The lowest cost butter option at chains that do not carry a Walmart-scale distribution network and whose private label products are typically produced by smaller contract dairy manufacturers supplying multiple retailers simultaneously. The pattern here mirrors the Great Value entry but with less transparency rather than more. Because store brand butter carries no national brand reputation, no identifiable parent company public accountability structure, and in many cases no disclosure about the sourcing, farming practices, or specific formulation choices behind the product beyond the minimum required by FDA labeling law. The milk fat percentage sits at the legal minimum. Natural flavor indicating starter distillate may appear depending on the specific retailer. no certification appears. And the contract co-packer producing the butter for one chain may shift their formulation decisions from batch to batch based on commodity input availability without the packaging ever reflecting that change. Number 1. Butter-flavored spreads and butter alternative products sold in tub format at the lowest price tier, including generic and store-brand margarine products whose primary fat sources are hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, water and coloring compounds, packaged in tubs visually adjacent to genuine butter in the dairy case, and priced to attract shoppers making a cost-based decision rather than an ingredient-based one. The furthest point from genuine butter available in the American dairy case. Products in this category that contain partially hydrogenated oil still carry the trans fat health concern that led the FDA to require the elimination of partially hydrogenated oils from most American food products, though certain legacy formulations in smaller distribution channels have been slower to reformulate than major national brands. Products in this category that use fully hydrogenated oil as a replacement avoid the trans fat designation, while still using an industrially processed fat that does not occur naturally in any food and whose long-term effects on cardiovascular health at sustained consumption levels have not been as thoroughly studied as the partially hydrogenated form that preceded it. At the bottom of this category, the product in the tub has no meaningful relationship to the cream-based food it sits next to in the same refrigerated case. That is the full picture across all 11. Milk fat percentages sitting at the legal American minimum of 80%, while European standards require more. Starter distillate hidden behind the natural flavor designation across multiple trusted cooperative brands. Grass-fed and pasture-raised claims that court rulings and regulatory standards allow to be far less specific than most shoppers assume when they read those words on a package. PFAS compound indicators found in wrapper materials in contact with the butter itself on some of the most premium brands in the category. And at the bottom end, products whose primary ingredients have no relationship to cream at all. Before we get to the 5 worth buying, here is what you can check tonight with the butter in your own refrigerator. Start with the milk fat percentage. Most butter packaging does not print the milk fat percentage prominently on the front of the label, but it is calculable from the nutrition panel. Multiply the fat grams per serving by the number of servings per package, then divide by the total package weight in grams, and you will have the milk fat percentage. If it is exactly 80%, you are holding butter made to the legal minimum. European standard is 82%. Genuinely premium butter often reaches 84% or higher. Then check the ingredient list specifically for the phrase natural flavor. In butter, natural flavor almost always means starter distillate has been added to simulate cultured butter flavor without the actual culturing process. A butter without natural flavor in the ingredient list has either been authentically cultured, in which case it will say cultured cream, or it has simply been made without the flavor additive, in which case it will contain only cream and possibly salt. Then look for a third-party grass-fed certification from an independent organization such as the American Grass-Fed Association or the PCO 100% Grass-Fed Seal. These certifications require annual on-farm inspections and documented forage diet verification rather than accepting the producer's word for the claim. A butter with one of these seals has had its grass-fed claim verified by someone with no financial stake in the answer. A butter that simply says grass-fed without a certification seal has made a claim that no one outside the company has independently checked. Now 5 brands actually worth buying. The first good pick is Maple Hill Creamery, 100% grass-fed organic butter. Maple Hill sources from New York farms where cows eat grass and dried grass year-round with no grain, no corn, no soy, and no seasonal exception. The 100% grass-fed organic certification means the diet claim has been independently audited rather than self-reported. The ingredient list is pasteurized organic cream. 1 ingredient. The deep yellow color of the finished butter is natural beta-carotene from actual fresh grass absorbed through the cow's diet, rather than added synthetic coloring. It costs more than Kerrygold and Vital Farms. The price reflects a diet standard that has been independently verified rather than one that a court ruled does not mean what the words appear to mean. The second good pick is Vital Farms pasture-raised butter. Vital Farms has invested in building a supply chain of American farms where cows spend at minimum 200 days per year on open pasture, a standard meaningfully above the 120-day minimum that allows Horizon to make its pasture-raised claim. The ingredient list is cream and salt. The pasture standard is not 100% grass-fed, which the brand discloses honestly. but the pasture access documentation and the independently verified farm standards represent a degree of transparency and accountability above most of the brands on this list. The butter fat percentage on Vital Farms reaches 85%, meaningfully above both the American minimum and the European standard. The third good pick is Anchor Butter from New Zealand, the same country of origin that Kerrygold invokes through Ireland but with a more defensible grass-fed foundation for most of the year. New Zealand's temperate climate allows cows to graze on fresh pasture for a significantly larger portion of the year than Irish cows do, and the year-round grazing season is longer and less interrupted than the Irish winter housing period discussed in the Kerrygold entry. Anchor's ingredient list stays clean, and the New Zealand dairy industry's pasture-based production model is more structurally consistent than the seasonal grass-fed claim that Irish production represents. The fourth good pick is any butter produced by a regional creamery or small dairy producer operating in your area, available at farmers markets, local grocery stores with regional dairy sections, or community-supported agriculture subscriptions. Small regional creameries producing butter from locally sourced cream are typically able to tell you specifically which farms supply their cream, what those farms' grazing practices look like, and what milk fat percentage their finished butter reaches, because they are making butter in quantities where every batch is traceable rather than blending commodity cream from hundreds of anonymous sources. The ingredient list will be cream and salt. The color will be naturally variable based on season and pasture conditions rather than standardized through processing. The texture will be softer and more variable than an industrially produced block. All of those variations are features of real butter rather than flaws in a manufactured product. The fifth good pick, and the most reliable option on this entire list because it gives you complete certainty about every ingredient involved, is making your own butter from fresh cream sourced from a farm you can verify. Pour heavy cream into a stand mixer or food processor and beat it past the whipped cream stage, roughly 8 to 10 minutes, until the fat solids separate from the liquid buttermilk. Strain the solids through cheesecloth, rinse under cold water until the water runs clear, press out remaining liquid, add salt if desired, and refrigerate. The only ingredient in the finished product is whatever was in the cream you started with. The cost per ounce from organic heavy cream comes out comparable to or lower than the premium butter brands on this list. You will know with complete certainty that no starter distillate, no natural flavor, no PFAS-indicated wrapper, and no milk fat manipulation of any kind has touched what is now sitting in your refrigerator. Here is the one rule genuinely worth keeping every single time you are standing in the dairy aisle reaching for butter. Check 3 things before the box goes in your cart. Look for natural flavor in the ingredient list, which means starter distillate is in the butter. Look for a third-party grass-fed certification seal from an independent organization rather than a brand's own grass-fed claim printed on the front of the package. And calculate the milk fat percentage from the nutrition label, because a butter sitting at exactly 80% has been produced to the legal minimum, while brands that could do better have chosen not to. If this changed how you think about the butter you use every single day, hit the like button right now and tell me in the comments which specific brand was sitting in your refrigerator before you started watching this video. Subscribe to Scam Uncovered so you catch it every single week we open up another label the food industry was counting on you never examining closely enough. Stay sharp, check the wrapper before you trust the label on the front of the box, and I will see you in the next one.